So, were you in a hurry? We're live. Okay. And center years ago.
Okay, we are live. So we'd like to welcome you to May 25th planning.
We'll
Yes.
lean into that microphone.
Is that better?
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
I had a little afternoon nap, so I might have to sound a little bit like I just woke up. I'd like to welcome you to Planning Commission. It's May 25th. My name is Krista Keach, and I am one of the planning commissioners. We'd like to welcome you and those that are joining us in person as well as online. We'll get started with the approval of minutes from May 11th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting. And for those that have had a chance to peruse that, give you a second to look it over and if there are any changes or addenda to be considered.
I move approval.
I second.
Okay, we'll do a voice vote by unanimous consent.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye. Aye.
I wasn't here.
Oh. Okay, it looks like that was approved by those that were here. We'll move on to the next item agenda, which is the Planning Commission oath of office for Deborah Shepherd. So we'll turn that to staff.
All right. If you will repeat after me. I, Deborah Shepherd, having been appointed to the office of Kaysville City Planning Commission member, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States
and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity. Thank
Happy
you.
to have you. You can have your seat right there, and I'll have you sign this as the meeting's over.
Welcome. Okay, we'll move forward with our next agenda item. Number 4, conditional use permit for Stage Dynamics, a major home occupation B located at 727 South, 1350 West. So we'll turn that to staff.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Let me just tell them a little bit about you, and then we'll have it. So this is Sarah. She's very excited to come to Planning Commission this evening. She is the owner of Stage Dynamics, and she's located at 727 South, 1350 West. She is the owner of Stage Dynamics, and she is wanting to do a conditional use permit for her home occupation. She'll be teaching different seasonal classes. So she's obviously a very talented woman, because most of us can only maybe do 1 or 2 of these items, and she can do piano, voice, group music, sewing, and crafting. So Ms. Johnson, she's been teaching these classes one-on-one, and she'd like to be able to grow her business and allow for group lessons in her home. So therefore, because of our city ordinances and regulations, it is required for her to come so that she can begin teaching. She'd like to have class sizes from 5 to 7 students, Tuesday through Thursday, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. She knows, we talked a little bit about drop-off and pick-up time, and that there will need to be a window in between each of the classes or each of the sessions. And like I put in the staff report, there's no other conditional use permits on this street. And the great thing about where she lives is there's lots of children that will be able to walk, which we love the opportunity for them to just get there on their own and get walking there. This is zoned an R120, so it's in, you can see that right there. And then if you go back 1, you can see right here, this is her home. She's at the front of this cul-de-sac. So it does allow for easy drop-off and pick-up, where they can go and turn around at the top of the circle and then come back and pick them up. And it looks like there's plenty of room for them to be picked up if needed there at home. Staff has worked with her, and we're recommending approval of this application based on regulations of 1726-4. And the applicant is here. Finally, we got an applicant to show up that's here. And she is more than willing and happy to answer any questions that you guys will have in regards to her conditional use permit.
Just real quick for staff. So is the class size in accordance with city code then?
So like we've done in some of our, where we had, so preschool, the city has a regulation of up to 12 students for
Okay.
preschool. Because of, this is not, it doesn't fall under a preschool, but it falls under classes or instruction. We did this with a gentleman that was wanting to teach concealed weapon
That's why I'm asking.
classes. And so this is the exact same situation where that's really dependent upon what you as commissioners feel like if there's a condition that needs to be placed on that, obviously with the 12 probably being ceiling of students permitted in that class, but yes.
Would it be safe to say that the daycare regulations don't apply in this particular situation?
Yes, this is not a daycare. So,
In
Yeah.
terms of capacity, that kind of thing?
yes, so, yes.
Are you sure?
If I can just take a moment to and welcome Deborah to the Planning Commission and just give a brief, I guess, overview of conditional use permits, which the name makes them sound like they're optional, whether or not we approve them, but that's not the case. They're uses that may have impacts to the existing neighborhood, and so we bring these to the Planning Commission. Our city code outlines a bunch of different details about what they can and can't do, and then when we bring the applicant in, we have the presentation, and if there's any other factors to consider, sometimes we apply additional conditions to that permit. But the vast majority of the time, it's not a rubber stamp, but it is a situation where we're not determining whether or not we're approving it. We're just determining if we apply any additional conditions to that use. So I just wanted to give that as a brief intro for Debbie. And if there's any questions too about the code, I can scroll down through those and see what is and isn't allowed.
Were there any neighbor comments?
So interesting enough, I think, so I can see there we go. So we put the sign out Friday morning, and probably about 10:30, probably 11 o'clock, I would say high school student lunch-ish time, there was a teenage boy that called to see what was going on in the neighborhood. And I think he thought there was going to be some riffraff coming in or something, and so we were able to put his mind at ease that it was going to be group art lessons, etc. And once I explained that, he's like, at first he made it sound like it was at his home, but then after I talked, he's like, oh, I'm just the neighbor. So anyway, I thought it was really cute that he was doing his civic duty, and that was the only comment or inquisition to this application.
So commissioners, are there any other questions or concerns? Is this where I ask if the applicant wants to come forward? Okay. Applicant, would you like to come forward?
Is it a public hearing?
Or do you have any questions?
Oh, do you have any questions for the applicant, commissioners? Ask you to state your name, please.
I was just going to ask if
Sarah Johnson.
Okay.
any of the neighbors, if you talk to the neighbors.
We have had multiple neighbors come and ask us what we are building. So I don't know if the residents are confused by the sign or if that sign goes out when people build.
Oh, wow.
I said, we're building a big, huge garage and we're going to rent it out to 5 families. No, correct that. I did not say that. That is not true. The record doesn't know when people are being sarcastic, right? No, so they just asked if we were building, but I have thought that I was able to just teach one-on-one voice.
And that's what I've been doing, just one-on-one. And so most of my neighbors are like, oh, you just want to teach more kids? Really? I gotta put a sign out for that? Anyway, just trying to do everything legally. We like those kind of residents. That should be great to work with.
Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I make a motion?
Yes, you may.
All right. I motion that the conditional use permit for Major B home occupation for Stage Dynamics owner Sarah Johnson, located at 727 South, 1530 West, be approved.
I'll second that.
1350. Sorry. 1350.
Okay, we have a motion for approval and a second, so we'll start with voting with Commissioner Packer.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, so voting was unanimous in allowing this to move forward, right? Help. Approving this condition of home occupation be located at 727 South, 1350 West. Okay. So
It happened all so fast. I was going to, before I voted, I was going to suggest that we attach some findings and some conditions of approval. Is the Planning Commission open to doing that, or is it too late to do that?
I mean,
Drats.
the conditions, though, will be the ones that are already listed in code,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, okay, no big deal.
And we can work on adding findings into our memos.
Yeah, I think it's good to always have some findings. Just while we're on it, these were going to be my suggestions, that the findings for approval, I should have asked you to accept an amendment. No, it's my fault. I was too shy. That the findings are that it's a low-impact use. It provides a service to the city and its residents. It complies with the zoning regulations for the zone in which it's located. There's not conflict with the general plan. And staff has not found noncompliance and has recommended approval based on the city's ordinances. Those would be the recommended findings. And then conditions of approval would just be that they comply with the getting an annual business license, that they use may not impede parking or access to other homes in the neighborhood at any time. Any expansion in the number of classes or changes in the use different than what was approved this evening must return to the Planning Commission for an amended approval. And that upon complaint of noncompliance or problems in the neighborhood, the use could be brought back to the Planning Commission for review. So, and I'll do that better job of that in the future. But that kind of gives us support for the motion.
thank you, Commissioner Allred. He has quite the, decades plural?
Yeah, well,
Experience. 3 different cities and a
Yeah.
county in this role. So.
Yeah, see, and I know nothing about oncology, so.
Okay, so we will move now to item number 5, which is a call to the public. So we'll open the call to the public. State your name, please.
Liz Sears. I technically live in Layton, but I'm only 1 block away from Kaysville, and my children went to Sam Morgan Elementary, Fairfield Junior High, and they are now at Davis. Last night, one of them graduated, so that was exciting. I have 2 children who are grown and have moved out. None of them have purchased a home at this time. I know that right now I'm kind of preaching to the choir about housing affordability, but I also am a realtor. I've been in the industry for 23 years. And like I mentioned to the City Council a week ago, what has been occurring in the housing market in the last few years is nothing short of horrifying. I had a colleague say to me a week or 2 ago, when the market shifted, it was in about May, and it just plummeted until July last year. It set stagnant from about September till February, and then it started ticking up, and it's really taken an upturn in the last few weeks. And she said, oh my gosh, it's so nice to see houses selling quickly again. And I told her, no, it's not, because we want a sustainable housing environment for our children. I want my children to be able to buy a home. I want them to be able to live by me. And so I want to draw your attention to this paper that I brought. Right now in Kaysville, the median priced home is $623,000. The current interest rate for an FHA mortgage is 5.75. The down payment that our children would need to come up with to purchase a median priced home is $21,000. And the amount of money they would need to earn to qualify, assuming they have no other debt, is $110,000 to afford the $4,162 mortgage for a median priced home here. What I am going to be doing over the next several months, possibly years, I've been working on this diligently for the last 6 months with other realtors who very much care about our industry, meaning the housing for us, for our colleagues, for our constituents, for everybody that is involved. We want affordable housing. There are things that we as cities can do to help make that happen. One of the things that we did as realtors 4 years ago is we donated in Utah realtors donated $1 million of the dues that we had raised to help bring awareness to this housing affordability. And it fell on deaf ears because it wasn't yet a problem people were aware of. We spent our money that we raised to lobby for a $50 million bond that was passed. I don't know if bond is quite the right word, but it was legislation that is to go towards first-time home buyers to purchase a new home. We purposely made it have to be for new construction priced $450,000 or less because the building permits that have been pulled normally for starter homes is 30 to 40% of building permits. Currently we're at 8. The reason we're at 8% of the building permits for starter homes is because there are a lot of problems and red tape and other issues that builders and developers run into that makes it cost prohibitive for them to build starter homes. And so the way that we can get that fixed is by working together, educating the public so that they don't vote out the city council members who would help us create, again, high-density housing. I do not mean rentals. I do not mean apartment buildings. I mean the little starter homes like we used to see in the avenues, in Sugar House, in Ogden, and other places where the price point could fall within where it needs to. So this bill we passed for $50 million requires that it be new construction priced $450,000 or less. And so we need your help to fast track those type of projects. We have that money coming available July 1st. And so like I said, over the next number of months, I'm going to be bringing information and data and ways that we can get these projects moved forward. And I would love to ask for your help in educating the public on how they can stop doing the not in my backyard, the NIMBY. How we can educate them that it's their children who will not be able to purchase unless they help us to get these projects built. I know I've gone over my 3 minutes that's normally for this, but I would love to answer, if it's all right, any questions that you guys may have.
Liz, let me ask you quickly. So Summit County, Park City are now working with Habitat for Humanity. I mean, having worked at this level with Davis County and affordable housing and housing for 5 years, I mean, the frustration I see is we have an absent community housing authority. They should be in the forefront of this. I mean, I'll be bluntly honest in my disappointment in our community housing authority. I mean, every time I turned around and was trying to work with them, they should be the ones out talking about what you're talking about. When I would have mayors come to me and say, do we have a community housing authority? And we do, and they didn't know that. That's my first frustration because they should be out the ones talking your talk. I mean, have you worked with the housing authority? That's my first question. I'm going to segue into that. Have you worked with Davis Community Housing Authority at all?
If you want me to be super blatantly obvious, I don't even know who they are.
Exactly. Thank you. Okay. Next one. What about Habitat for Humanity? I mean, looking at what's going on in Summit County, they're now building, I think it's a 50 to 100 unit housing up in Camas for affordable housing. I mean, it's a great development, but it's on land that's been donated by city and county coming in and private developer. Is that a model that you think that we could follow here in Davis County and Kaysville, Layton?
Short answer, yes.
Okay.
Long answer is it's not going to be enough quick enough.
No.
As I'm also a member of the community outreach with the realtors as well. We've teamed up with home builders. We do the exact same thing kind of on a smaller scale called Have a Heart. Yep. And we build several homes, several is exaggerating, 2 to 3 homes a year. And we've been doing it for 15, 20 years. In the beginning, it was like 1 every other year, but we're trying to ramp that up. But that is so minuscule
And I asked the question because I know we had approval, I mean, this is pre-COVID, 2018, for high-density 0.13, 0.15 acre out in Syracuse, and then Habitat disappeared from our county completely. I mean, they like dried up and went back to Weber County. I mean, is there a way to bring them back? Is there a way for the realtor? I mean, because it's driven by your industry. A lot of that is driven in the community. I mean, we can do what we can do here by approving and stuff, but it's got to come from industry marrying up with NGOs and NPOs. I mean, that's really where a lot of this comes from. Because when you put the sweat equity in and you put those dollars in that new home, that's really where you're driving this.
Yes. Yep, and so that we're going to be looking at every angle we possibly can. So connecting with those people, if you have their contact information, I would love to start that. I can look for it as well.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
Absolutely.
I've worked on the forefront of this. I mean, this is not, it's not an issue that's going away, but it's
Right.
also not an unfamiliar issue.
We on average have 70,000 people move into our state that are transplants here, and that's in addition to our natural growth.
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to just congratulate you for being open-minded on this issue. So many
Yeah.
people aren't.
Right.
But as somebody who works in the housing industry as a realtor, a real estate agent, you know the needs that are out there. As somebody who worked with this for years and years and years, I can tell you that this is such a multi-headed problem, multi-headed monster.
Yes.
And it's exacerbated right now by high interest rates and somewhat stagnant wages. So if you go from, 3% interest rate on so many homes, those people aren't going to sell those homes. They're holding on, right?
Right.
So there's not a lot of homes going on the market. If you go out and drive, for example, I have 2 kids that live in Daybreak. You go out to Daybreak, which a lot of people want to get into. There aren't very many for sale signs because a lot of people who bought out there have interest rates, mortgages that are under 4%,
Yep.
3%. So they're not going to get rid of those and trade it out for a 6%.
Mm-hmm.
And then wages aren't keeping up with the cost of housing, the cost of materials. So just real quickly, I'm working with, volunteering with the Northern Wasatch Home Builders Association.
Wonderful.
And we're trying, as somebody who used to work for cities, I worked for cities for a long time. And so as somebody who worked on that side of the counter from developers, I'm now working with the development community. And what we're trying to do is we're going to be holding a series of roundtables at the Home Builders Association office to build bridges between the development community builders and the cities on how to speed up the process on getting permits, getting inspections, because a lot of the problem is that we have many approved homes, but they can't get into the ground fast enough. So we have
Right.
this damming effect, right?
Yes. Yep.
And then I think the single biggest problem that we have, and I'm not shy about this, is that we have elected officials in particular who are afraid to pass ordinances and to lead and to really lead and lean into
Yes.
the issue of creating more affordable housing because the NIMBYs.
Because they may not get voted back in.
Right.
Mark Shepard was.
Mark Shepard's amazing. He's actually the chairman right now of the Government Affairs Committee,
Sorry,
which I'm a
sorry
member
to
of. And Adam Speth is the president of the board of realtors for Northern Wasatch, and I'm on the board. I'm one of the directors.
But I'll go back. I mean, Mayor Shepard. I mean, they tore out a community within Clearfield and have put in an affordable housing community,
Yes.
55 and older, with affordable. But they also found the right developer to do that with. I mean, but it took some bravery on their part, and he had to bring the city council along with him. But he also got reelected after doing
Right,
that.
so part of it is going to be educating the public per city. So Mark Shepard is, and Adam and I and a few others were kind of spearheading Divide and Conquer to go and educate the city council, city planning, and then get help with educating the public in each of
Yeah.
those cities.
You're seeing the legislature now having to force
Yes.
cities and threaten cities.
Yes.
It's still not enough.
Next year, some of them are going to feel the teeth of that legislation.
Yeah.
And we're hoping to educate them so they don't have to.
Yeah, it's a mindset issue. And you raised it, I'll give you a story of something that happened years ago in a Davis County community. But as staff, we raised the issue on a rezone petition. And we said, hey, there's a problem when we don't have the ability for young married couples to move back into the cities that they grew up in. So for the city I worked for, I said, there's a missing housing, you know what I mean? We have trailer parks, we've got low income, older beat up housing, and then we have expensive single family homes and nothing in the middle, this missing middle housing, right?
Exactly.
But I actually heard on more than one occasion from residents who said, and I quote, I don't give a damn that my kids can't live here. They are welcome to move back into the city they were raised when they make what I make. And so I'm not the only one who has heard that repeatedly over the years. There is a lot of fear about anything except for your standard picket fence, quarter-acre lot.
Right.
I'm also working with Envision Utah. Have you heard of Envision Utah?
Yes, very much.
Okay, they had a meeting yesterday, 100 invitees, but they had 50 people on a Zoom call. And on that Zoom call, it was all about reviewing statistical data. They had lots of charts and everything. And there were a lot of developers there and a lot of city folks.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, it's going to take coalitions, including realtors, board of realtors,
Yep.
are probably going to have to link arms with Envision Utah and other groups like the home builders and the cities to say, how do we get this in? And there's really no way other than to get planning commissions and elected officials, council members to say, we're going to do this.
Yes.
We're going to do this. But I think it really starts there. And there's a disconnect also between cities' long-range plans, what are called general plans, and their zoning ordinances.
Yep.
The general plans will all say, hey, let's have affordable housing, and yes, we want to be inclusive. General plans will always have this kind of flowery language it's encouraging. It says, hey, we're going to be able to do this.
It's not prescriptive.
But it never happens that way because
Right.
in Utah, like most states, there is no requirement for the zoning ordinance and the general plan to go glove in hand,
Right.
okay? Hand in glove. So that's part of our problem too. But we're not going to get anywhere unless more people like you keep doing what you're doing. So my hat's off to you. Thank you for
Thank you.
what you're doing.
Yep. And any other questions?
What can we do to help?
So a few different things that we've already talked about is fast tracking the projects that are going to be owner occupant. So I know that for a lot of people, the term HOA is a curse word, but there's a few things that we have found often occurs, often maybe not isn't the correct term, but where they'll say it's going to be owner occupant, they're going to be selling individual units, but then they turn around and make it an apartment complex. As the government, we don't want to overstep bounds of private property rights. However, HOAs can put into rules of how many of those can be rentals and how many can't. And so part of it will be fast tracking the projects that are affordable housing. Second would be putting into place, we'll approve this if you have an HOA that will limit the number of rentals that can be in this unit, because otherwise they're selling giant apartment buildings to BlackRock, you know, if you just want to use those type of terms.
Actually, BlackRock's been selling them out.
Sorry?
BlackRock's been selling all those out.
Well, there you go. So, and then also we're looking at changing the requirements of the public notices, because a lot of times when these projects are built, you have to do a public notice multiple times. Every time you do that, it elongates the project, which defeats the affordability, because now the additional costs that the developers
Time is money.
are. Yes, exactly.
I mentioned that in the chat yesterday with the
Yes.
group. I said, hey, you know, we have these unnecessary public hearings.
Yep.
And there's a couple of things that happen with that. One, it's more time consuming, but it also creates an atmosphere by having a public hearing when
Someone needs to object. It's
when
like
neighbors
you're-
come out,
Yes.
they think that's with the purpose that I can stop this. The problem is if a subdivision, if single-family homes are permitted uses, by right, they can be built. So why are we having a hearing to do that? And so there's
Exactly.
just a lot
If
of,
it's allowed use, why, yeah. And we saw that with a project in West Bountiful that was a joint project with West Bountiful and Woods Cross that got killed from the time it was approved initially in the first meeting over in West Bountiful. They went to Woods Cross the same night and came back to West Bountiful for the final approval. And by the time that happened, the citizens had come back to West Bountiful, and it shot down. It was an affordable housing project. I mean, this has been a few years ago. But you see that same process go on countywide.
So part of it that we're planning on doing too is in those neighborhoods where people are fighting against it, is just to do an education, like
even in the newsletter, the Kaysville newsletter, a little section on why do
Well,
we
and
need
What I
affordable
share each
housing?
month, I would love
And,
to.
People lose
and,
funding.
and I'll tell you, what is the perception? I mean, and Commissioner Kamala and I have talked about this for a long time. The perception of affordable housing is that they other it. You know, affordable housing is, it's your firefighter, it's your police officer, it's your school
Yes.
teacher, it's your
Cashier at the grocery
cashier,
store, it's
yeah,
the
it's your
people who
clerk.
run
Exactly, it's your
Service
service entry level. And that's the story that needs to be told, because as soon as you other them and say, oh, it's, you know, it's the ghetto, it's those people. Well, you know, who are those people? You put that face on it. It's my kids, or it's that school teacher in their neighborhood, or it's a police officer or the firefighter. Then it becomes like, oh yeah, we want those people in our neighborhood. And that's how you build community.
Exactly.
Great. So are there any other questions? Thank you, Liz.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you for your 3 minutes.
Yes. And thank you, Commissioners Allred and Lyon, for your comments too. We will close the call to the public. Okay, next, agenda item number 6, other matters.
It's good to be back with you all. My time in Vernal at the APA conference was well spent. There were some great sessions I was able to attend. One of those was the session on the reporting for the affordable housing, and that will be due on August 1st. So we have just a couple of months to, actually not even that, but several weeks to get all that put together. And I think that's going to be another big, huge problem like it was last
Well,
fall.
I was going to ask if they already moved the goalpost twice on us.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Yes. So I've sent some, it's not, they fixed some of the problems, but I think through this next reporting process, we're going to find out what the rest of the problems are. And so I think there's a disconnect between what the code says and what will be required for us to have accomplished in order to be in compliance. So stay tuned for more of that, but it'll be an interesting process. And I think, you know, probably in September we'll know a little bit more about the outcomes. I did also want to let you know we have done a bunch of research on scenic byways and sign codes for scenic byways, and essentially we have found nothing. So I even, that is data. I even sent out on the APA listserv for the Utah chapter a call for information and didn't receive anything, but we've looked or contacted probably over 20 different cities or counties that have a scenic byway running through them, and none of them have anything specific to sign heights along scenic byway. The exception is Centerville, that has that 150-foot shoreline protection. So within 150 feet of a shoreline, you can't have a sign. Or that's also on what they call their major trails. And so that rail trail that goes through there, anything within 150 feet of that, they would not allow a sign, but outside that proximity, the signs would just be whatever that zone is. So we will be bringing that back to you on June 22nd. I'm going to pass the baton on to Dan for that. And I will be out of town that week, out in the backcountry. So you'll be in good hands with Dan. But really, in the absence of having any like best practices to bring back to you, it's a little. Yeah, we can be trendsetters. We can, I mean, I think what Dan and I talked about the other day is that our recommendation would just be to leave it as is, which is they would be allowed 30 feet. But we'll see after we present that to you, what the commission thinks it should be. And then, of course, the ultimate decision will be with the city council. So another exciting thing to look forward to, we had a meeting this week with Phil Holland and his group They have submitted their application for the mixed-use project over here off of 400 West and 350 North. So that'll be a nice little project to diversify our community just a little bit and not really have a lot of impact with those, at least actual NIMBYs, because there's no residential properties over there. But they're looking at bringing a 2-story office building, 1-story retail building, 4-story hotel, and then 2 3-story apartment buildings. It would be like 130 units.
Okay.
So
How big, with 2-story office, how many square feet do you estimate?
15,000.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. And the
That's pretty significant. for
retail's going to
Kaysville.
be 5,000, and I want to say, so between the 2 apartment buildings, I think they were like 106,000, and the hotel is like 58,000 square feet.
That's a good sized hotel.
Yeah. So
Is there any mixed use? We're actually in the same building?
No, this will be horizontal mixed use.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're still finding that's a problem statewide. I mean, lenders struggle, but when you can actually get mixed use in the same building vertically, it's really cool.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, and-
Well,
and-
we'll have that
There's-
over by Smith's.
And, and
We will.
to peg onto yours, even then, in communities where it's allowed, both the lending, getting the lending stack to pair with all the other stuff. I mean, lenders right now are not building that.
Yeah.
And the tenants, I mean, if you look nationally, tenants aren't coming. I mean, I'm curious to see what's going to happen with even office space.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think as far as Kaysville goes, I think it's a great little project.
Yeah.
If they had frontage, I think it would be a different product, and maybe we would have that that vertical mixed use. But it's on that cul-de-sac. They really don't. The only frontage they have is the I-15 frontage. So
That'll give them a bit.
Yeah, yeah. So, but that'll be exciting. Look for that. Of course, the Holland Group is hoping that will come ASAP. But that'll either be some point in June or maybe the first meeting in July. So, and this is kind of the fun stuff. This is what, at least for me, is fun to work on and draft those development agreements.
It's
And,
not a gas station.
so that's a couple things to look forward to. And I don't think there's really any training sessions coming up, but we'll make sure we push out information for all of you for the league conferences that they'll have in September. And then the fall APA conference, I think, is going to be in
It's also September.
Lehigh. Is that in September
I think
too?
it's last week of September.
No, it's in Ogden.
It's all right, it is in Ogden, but
Yeah.
I think it's in September, not
The
October.
first community of Ogden.
Yeah, so that would be a great one to have everybody register for.
Yeah, I'll be going.
Yeah, so any other questions for me? All right.
Oh, does everybody know that we have a new city manager? Is there any update on that?
Yeah, we're excited. The city council, not last week, the meeting before, approved a contract with Jason Christensen, who actually, he and I graduated from the same MPA class from BYU, so I know him from a long while back. He looks the same. I think I look a little older probably, but he starts on June 5th, and so we're looking forward to getting into a new groove with him. He's been out in Missouri since we graduated in 2002. He's been an assistant city manager and a city manager in a couple different areas out there. The city he's in right now it's smaller than Kaysville, but I think there's a lot of parallels between Kaysville and income levels and things like that. So I think he'll be well suited to be here. And like I said, we're looking forward to.
The community right next to it.
I know Dean especially is looking forward to
Yeah.
just being the finance director.
I thought it was a good write-up, I read.
Yeah.
So whoever put that together, I think did a nice job, and it'd be good to have that leadership at the top again, so.
Yeah. He's a good guy, so we'll just have to put up with a BYU fan.
I went to the right school.
But I know
Utah?
there's a lot of U, seems like the further north you get, people are U fans and not
Well,
BYU fans.
within the city management in Utah, though, it's like 85% BYU.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's hard to break in if you're not.
The U's churned out a few, but not as many as BYU.
They have a terrific program.
Pretty good program.
The U does. Both
I know,
BYU
I'm a
and
grad.
Utah.
I'm an MPA grad from the U.
Yeah. Both programs are recognized nationally. They're really
Oh.
good.
Well, and then, hey, while we're at it, I guess I can just say the mayor's been working really hard, and a lot of community members have been working really hard on that Trader Joe's campaign. So,
How's that going?
Vote early and often.
yeah, exactly. Keep on putting in
I'll
requests.
say this, I mean, the project, if Phil Holland's project comes forward, that only enhances what getting that project in. I mean, and then your densities within, I mean, when I worked on the project with PEG Development down in Scottsdale, I mean, when they came in, they do their circles, they break it out. I mean, you start looking at the density and the income levels. We have the income levels here and throughout East Layton and within Layton and West Kaysville, and within 15 miles in Farmington. I think we stand a good chance. And we have, I mean, you got 14,000 cars to 20,000 cars going on that main street in front of that every day. You've got the cars, you've got the traffic, you've got everything else. I mean, I think a mixed-use project like this now would enhance that. I mean, you're still like, you know, once you get it approved, you're still 2-3 years out from it being built. I mean, it gives you good time.
Yeah.
But having more doors and having more commercial readily available just enhances your pitch for that. I think if we can get that project coming through and it looks good, I mean, more projects like that in that area would just keep enhancing that. I think Kaysville's on a good track if we can keep doing that.
Yeah, for sure. So I know the initial push brought, I think, quite a lot of contact points to the website, and a couple of weeks ago, I think the best guess was that we hoped that there had been as many as 17,000 emails that had been sent to Trader Joe's, but the more the better, and just because you did it once doesn't mean you can't do it again, so.
I think they were saying you could do it once a day, so, and email. So, you can come up with a bot on your computer.
We all know what you're doing.
Chat
for
GPT.
Memorial Day weekend is you're just getting everyone to submit. I think that's all I have.
That's a lot. Thank you.
That is, yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Greenwood and Ms. Edstrom. When speaking of just support and offerings to our city, what you both do is countless hours, and we probably have no idea, and off the hours, and just filtering and collating all the things that we have no idea about on the back end. So thank you very much. We truly see a little bit of what you do and recognize that nobody probably will, besides those who've had that position, really recognize, and the I guess the love, and I don't know if love is the right word, but just the, you know, there's got to be passion behind it, or else I don't know that anyone would do that like in the way that you do, and so methodical and so detailed and so forth. So thank you. So with that, I guess I'll open it to a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.